Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy. In today's episode, we're going to be popping some corn with Miss Sugey Gomez. She's working on her doctorate at John F. Kennedy University. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing making the adaptation to online learning, how to stay organized, how to create a structure to meet deadlines, and last but not least, knowing when and how to rest your eyes from the computer screen if you've been doing online classes for 4, 5, 6 hours a day. She's going to also give some tips and strategies to the high school student entering into college. And finally, we'll close out and discuss what new projects Sugey is up to. So stay tuned for today's episode. Peace and blessings. You know, with you being a student and working on your doctorate in sports psychology, I wanted you to talk to the audience today about, you know, what it's like with this new online education, the demands, you got to expect that there's going to be more of this in the future. Like more businesses are being born during this time because we're forced online. There's probably going to be more online schooling. So talk to the audience, like what's been your experience with that?
It's a lot of moving parts for everyone. And my classmates too, those that are not used to being online, I think I have an edge or a higher advantage because, as you know, I've been online for a little bit before. So I'm aware of the online process, but it does feel, now kind of talking about my thoughts, it does feel like more work somewhat because you're online. It's a lot more self-paced. There is some leeway because everyone's kind of working together to figure it out. But there seems like, I feel like there's so much more reading and so much more self-paced work. Like, yeah, we have deadlines and we're aware of them, but for some reason, it also can feel very tiring for me, like my eyes. Being like, for example, on Tuesdays, usually we'd be on campus or on site from our classes from like 9:30 to 1:45, and we have a little break, and then we go back to 2:30 to 5. It's different when you're on site and you're moving around, being in person, of course, and being online on Zoom for that long. Yes, we get breaks, but it's tiring. Like I feel different when it comes to being tired versus being on site. Like when I finish like on Zoom, like I've got glasses that protect the blue light of the screens, but it's still like, it's a different way of feeling like exhausted. It's really interesting. That's probably like the biggest difference I've felt, where it's like, wait, am I tired? I am tired. And it feels exhausting, just my eyes and the strain and all the stimulation from the talks and everything, the reading. It could be a lot, but overall, I mean, it's nice in a sense of I'm home with family. I don't have to worry about any details besides go to school, put my little post-it on door in class or in a call. And that's really nice too. There's that benefit about it and that convenience.
So, you know, if we look into the future based on like what you're experiencing right now, because, you know, there's high school kids, they're online too, but I know not to the significance that you're working on a doctor. So you're all day. They might be online for an hour, maybe 2 at the most, you know. So what strategies would you give them, or what advice would you give to the young person going to college in the future, knowing that they might be online for 3, maybe 4 or 5 hours a day with different instructors and constantly looking at a screen?
That's a good question. I think, going through my whole, like, I've been in school forever. So my history of my experience in school is, for number one, I'd say definitely organizing and writing down like the deadlines, like the basics, like the skeleton of what your day is going to look like, or your week or your month. For me, I'm quite organized and structured. That's part of who I am. I think I'm essentially wired that way. So I build that repetition, but I think generally speaking, definitely organizing, whether that be having a planner or having a big whiteboard in your room or your area of desk where you have your deadlines. You can see them from far away and like, oh, right, I have this coming up tomorrow. And then to add another note to that, like the night before, if I don't know if it will work, but if it works because everything, all these tips and per se tricks are really if they work for the athlete or the performer or your audience that's listening. So, but in any case, like night before, looking to see what do I have going on the next day, whether it be like one deadline or two deadlines. Also taking rest times, like being gentle on yourself and pacing yourself. I know for me, sometimes I'll be in school and like, oh, I just have one more page to read. Like, I could get this done, and like try to really grind through it. Sometimes it's more important to take a pause and take time to get away from the computer. Whether give yourself blocks to make sure that you are getting away from the computer and taking those little breaks, whether it be a lot of little breaks or just I'll do an hour and then I take like a 10-minute break and walk around, go outside, and then come right back and have those blocks so you can help yourself like move around, get the blood flowing through your body and be able to really like focus. Because eventually you focus a little too much and you might be doing the work, but are you really learning and retaining the information? So I know I would say definitely taking breaks and that motivation piece, intrinsic motivation, really connecting to that if they can, because at the end of the day, online is, what I experienced, been very self-paced. So to summarize would be a planner or some whiteboard on the wall, possibly looking at that before what I have going on and taking breaks and pacing yourself, blocking yourself to have those times, walk around, get the blood flowing, and looking to that intrinsic motivation to keep moving.
Yeah, I like what you said about taking breaks, because sometimes in this times it's easy to get stressed. It's easy to let fears take over, and I think we just got to learn how to step away and be still, even if it's like a 5 or 6 minute meditation to collect our thoughts, to absorb what we've been learning. So I
Mm-hmm.
think you're right on point with that. With everything that's going on, Sugey, what current projects are you working on? What's new for you?
I am working on a couple of things, exciting stuff. One of them that I'm really excited about, that's very new to my space, is when my peer Alex Cantillo and I are planning to create our own podcast. So we are on the works with that. We've officially started like the weekends of brainstorming and starting to record, even if it's on Zoom, something. And we're looking to have it born and everything in the fall, given our schedules. We're both students. So we're really excited about that. We are looking to call it Mental S&C, Sugey and then Cantillo. So that's a really exciting thing that we're both really stoked to bring in that creativity. I think it's more, and I speak for myself, more for a place to create, to share and teach and just give nuggets. Well, I know for me, it's like, well, I'm a student. I think that's the best time to share. Like I'm in the midst of it all and I'm not 10 years away from school. I'm in it right now. And so is Alex. So that's really exciting for like both of us. That's a nice project that's coming through. So that's one of them. Another small thing I'm working on is definitely updating my website. Like that's one thing that I've always told myself, like eventually I want to be able to have this website when I leave, when I graduate and everything, have something already there. So connecting like eventually when I'm licensed, like drsugey.com to the sugeyhealth.com, but starting to like update things like with the blog, really look at having more of a blog and more of a place for community. So that's one thing like, okay, it's a small thing, but yet it's like a big thing, because long term there's so much that I want to put in there and have that with me. And I think that's the two main things. It's with school, and I say this to share if anyone ever decides to go into like a doctor program or anything like that. One thing that's really exciting that comes up for us every year is like we do practicums, like training sites that we do work, and all of us officially are waiting. We're next week on Wednesday. There's a match system, and we're waiting to see if we're matched with our top 3 or top 5, whichever ones we rank. So that's really exciting too. It's not a project, but it's something that's within the school, and that is essentially going to let me know where I'm going to be next fall, assuming all this COVID-19 and the shelter in place. We'll see what happens with that. But assuming that we go back to school on site, that actually just happened this Wednesday. We all ranked our sites. We had interviews prior, and now we're anticipating like on Wednesday when we get our our notification Wednesday, I think at 8 a.m. to find out where we will be. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Alex Cantillo, he's been on the show before. I forget which episode he's been on, but I look forward to having Alex on the show again. That's got to be pretty exciting. Y'all starting y'all's own podcast. You're getting a lot of practice. We know that for sure.
yes, I
What I
am.
wanted to ask you was like, what inspired you to start a podcast or collaborate? Where did that thought come from?
It's like sometimes at first, like, I think for me, I was like, where I didn't necessarily, I know at one time I thought like, oh, maybe I can start a podcast, but it wasn't something like big in my headspace. And I sometimes see like others may see talent or things that, this to want to collaborate with you, or they might see something like, we can do this. So I will, and I have not told this to Alex, but I will give him credit where he really saw the vision. I think because he had seen me being, my social media is pretty active, and then doing this with you and then Tola as well, and how I really enjoy this. And I think part of that was like possibly that inspiration of like, and it was just it was a total random conversation. We were at the gym, like we used to go to the gym every weekend when we were
right.
Up north. And I don't know where he brought it up, like, hey, like I've been thinking about this. And it was one of those like, oh, yeah, like it just hits kind of like home. You're like, yeah, it feels right. Let's continue talking about it. So it's been a very organic, just a very casual, two peers just connecting and talking about, because we're both so passionate about sports psychology, performance psychology, and it just seems right. We're like, why wouldn't we do this? And it's been pretty neat to talk to a couple of our peers who are like, this podcast, you two, like, because Cantillo has his personality. He's very enthusiastic, very dynamic, and I love it. I actually told him that yesterday. I was like, I already see how your personality shine.
He'd be wired like how I'll be wired sometimes. That's what I like about him. Like, damn, somebody got more energy than I have.
Yes.
I appreciate that about him.
Yes, and that makes him. And even yesterday when we were, I shared with you that I had our school has seminars. They're professional seminars that we join every quarter. They're called PDSs. And yesterday we had Justin Soa, SUA, and he's a performance coach. And for the Rays, for baseball, I think that's what.
Yeah. What is that? Yeah. Tampa Bay Devil Rays baseball.
Yeah. Yep. So he, and my whole point is about Alex, and he talking about his enthusiasm. He was organizing, like facilitating the call, and immediately he came in with like that fire. And I told him yesterday, I was like, I already see how you will bring like, your personality, and I'll bring mine in there, and just the flow of both of our personalities like really meshing. So yeah, I think that the inspiration really just came from, at least for me, of a trusted friend, someone I've known. I know him, from 2017. We met back in 2017 when we started the program, and just the connection of the topics that we have so much. Like, he's a year ahead of me, but we're like right there. Like, I'm right behind him. We're like learning. So it just makes a good connection. And lastly, just the passion to share, to serve, to, like, for me, it's like, well, I'm a student in the midst of it all. This is a perfect time to share. And I think that one of the things that I want to really bring into it is like the authenticity, and really bring my personality in. And I even told, like, sometimes it's like a fun project that we have. Like, I don't ever want to feel like work, to be like, we're just sharing, to share, and to love, and to give, and talk about our silly mistakes that are happening, and just be students, in the midst of it. And for me, I know I tell you when we're on here, I'm like, sometimes I can be too like serious and like giggling or laughing about things. Like, humor is something that I'm really trying to touch into because sometimes I can be very serious on that topic. And yes, I take my work serious, but myself, not so much. Like, working on, it's okay to like relax and have a good time. So the passion really just came from a lot of different angles, from the friendship, from the topics, from the passion, and the love of the work.
Well, before we close out, ladies and gentlemen, I think you said something key, is that you have to put your personality into your work. And I feel like too often into the coaching field, guys, and women, they try to act too freaking sterile, and then you don't have no personality, and you wonder why your kids don't relate to you, or wonder
Mm,
why they're not attracted to you as a coach. So you got to allow time to be friendly, put your personality into it. Even when you're in times of seriousness, we all have our own quirks, but you can't be afraid to be who you are. And I find that's what makes it difficult for me to deal or even listen to other individuals when it's just too sterile. I feel like you're talking like at me rather than us
right.
having a conversation.
Hmm.
Speak with me. So if you're a coach listening to this, I think this is one of the big takeaways that Suhei has mentioned today is you have to put your personality into your work where it's definitely distinct and unique. So don't be afraid to be who you are. Suhei, you dropped some nuggets on us today as far as like how to plan your day out, during these times, learning how to take a break from the screen, understanding what this blue light does to us. It reminds me of last week where you got to do your saccades, or you got to do them eye exercises, looking from left to right, your horizontal saccades, your vertical saccades, and then your diagonal saccades, to strengthen those eye muscles. You know what I mean? So that's what you reminded me of today. So before we close out, is there any last words that you would like to leave our audience with?
I would say, and I go from yesterday's PDS from my school, from Justin Sua. He brought up, really inspired me, is like, it's your journey, and wherever you're doing, your audience listening, it's your journey. Do the best that you can. And then my words, really taking time for the process. And I know a lot of times we can connect to productivity and always wanting to push and do, and really looking to more connecting to presence and being here and everything you do. And that it's a journey, it's a process, and there's no end, and continue coming from a space of love and care and compassion.